Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark, the Fun Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. Today, I want to talk about how to establish and maintain momentum when it comes to relationship fundraising. Now, sometimes those of us who are in the nonprofit space as executive directors, when we begin to engage in relationship fundraising, maybe we start with one donor that we know that can give big. And we start the process of building that relationship with them, ultimately making the case and making the ask and hopefully closing the deal. And sometimes when we work on one at a time, we are not establishing a pace that fosters a momentum of success when it comes to relationship fundraising. So many people who are major gift officers understand this because that is all that they do. Their entire is focused on building relationships with individuals who have capacity, and that's all that they do. But when you're an executive director and you have a number of other things going on, managing staff, overseeing other duties, anything related to running an overall successful nonprofit organization, takes time and it takes focus on a variety of different things at once. But what I'm going to ask you to do is challenge yourself, because securing philanthropic support is the lifeblood of your organization's success and its ability to advance and move forward. So it's important to have a focus on fundraising, and relationship fundraising, as you know, is the most successful way to raise dollars, hands down. So here are three things that you are going to want to do to establish and maintain momentum when it comes to relationship fundraising. Number one, you want to make sure that you are securing visits, not just one visit, but several. I suggest that you are engaging in as many as 3 to 5 visits per week. So that means you are going to have to carve out some time to be on the phone or engaging in emails, setting up these visits. Now, I would encourage you to leverage your board. On other videos, I've talked about how you can leverage your board to secure these visits by having them introduce you to people that they know that have capacity. That can be done via email. That can be done with them joining you for a coffee, which I call a tag team coffee. Or they could host something at their home where you can meet a number of people at once and then have the ability to follow up shortly after. So that's a great way to leverage your board in getting you in front of the right people. But just because you get names and phone numbers doesn't mean you're just calling one person at a time and scheduling visits. You should be scheduling, and your calendar should have at least 3 to 5 visits on it. That's one visit a day if you're working a 5-day week, right? That's not a lot. And yes, it requires travel time because ultimately you'd like to be having these conversations face to face, but hopefully you'll be able to do so with folks that are local. And maybe you, instead of doing one a day, maybe you're doing 2 or 3 a day. And that way you can front load your week by getting your visits out of the way on Monday and Tuesday. And then you have the rest of the week to focus on other things. But as you begin to develop those relationships, you want to do so in a way that not every relationship is going to move at the same pace. You're not going to get from the first meeting to the ask at the same time with all 3 to 5 of those donors. And so you're going to have to pace yourself so that you are establishing a momentum of getting in front of new people on a regular basis. So that's really critical, is to make sure that you are engaged in visits that are on a regular basis. 3 to 5 a week is what I recommend. The second thing you're going to want to do is to make sure that your pipeline is full. So while you're scheduling visits with 3 to 5 people each week, and it doesn't mean that, let me clarify that. So the 3 to 5 visits some of those can be with the same people. So if you have a visit week 1 and you visit that same person in week 3, that's fine. So visits are visits. And if it's 3 to 5 visits with some of the same people because you're building that relationship, that's fine. But if the trajectory is moving forward and you're moving people along, getting them to the point of asking, then you're going to go into your pipeline and now identify somebody new that you want to start building a relationship with, so that you have this sort of revolving process of new prospects, prospects that you're working on, and of course, prospects that you may have already secured a gift from that you're going to maintain a relationship with until it's time to ask them again. So, making sure that your pipeline is full doesn't have to be your responsibility entirely. If you have an admin, that admin can help you. They can go into your database. If you're engaged in wealth screening, then you know how many people have capacity in your database. So now it's a matter of prioritizing and having somebody help you to say, okay, these are the next 10 or 15 folks that you need to focus on. And again, getting those meetings so that you're engaging in those 3 to 5 times a week means that you can pace yourself accordingly, but that you have a pipeline that is ready for you to act. Okay. So make sure that you keep that pipeline full. You can go through that pipeline and prioritize it in a number of ways based on capacity, based on geography, right? Based on their interests. So if you know that a group of prospects is interested in a particular thing that your mission is focused on, then you want to make sure that you categorize them that way. If you want to keep track of that, geography is probably the most efficient way to go, because if you're a local organization but you've got to go to one county and you're scheduling a visit, well, then why not schedule 2 or 3 visits in that same day? And again, being efficient with your time is what's critical. Okay. So make sure that you are keeping that pipeline of significant prospects full. And then finally, and probably should go without saying, but I'm going to say this: when we engage in building these relationships, we forget that we have to move toward making an ask ultimately. Sometimes that ask can happen sooner, sometimes it can happen later. Now, my rule of thumb to know that when a prospect is ready for an ask is really 2 things that you need to know. One, when you're at the point where they have no more questions for you and you have no more information to share with them, it's time to ask. So as you're moving along this process of getting visits, keeping your pipeline full, as you're visiting with folks, you have to make sure that you get to that ask. And that ask can happen after 3 visits, it can happen after 5 visits, it can happen, after even more visits. It really depends on the donor. Your job is to make sure that you're sort of following their lead, but you're staying focused on the objective, and that is to make sure that you get that ask in. If you do these things, you will be very successful, and you'll be able to manage your time and make sure that you can oversee all of the other things that you do as an executive director. Now, of course, goes without saying, and this is sort of a bonus tip, that you should, if at all possible, as executive directors, be focusing only on the things that only you can do. So what I mean by that is you're really the only person that can build relationships that lead to an ask, because as the executive director, you're the person that these donors are going to want to meet with. They're not going to want to meet with anybody else on your team. You can include others on your team as you're building that relationship, and you can include them as content experts, but you are running point on this relationship. And so it's going to be absolutely critical that you're taking the lead. And so if you focus on only the things that only you can do and delegate the rest, then you're going to see great success in fundraising. I'm not saying forget about everything else. I'm saying that you need to keep an eye on all of those things, delegate and follow up, but focus on the things that only you can do, and you will be very, very successful in securing big gifts for your organization that will allow you to grow your capacity, which may allow you to hire more people or to create more programs that will serve more people. That is the objective, right? You are here as an organization to serve the people that benefit from what you do. That's why you exist, right? So at the end of the day, of course, when it comes to all of this, making sure that you are getting out on visits, that you are working your pipeline, and that you are constantly making sure that you're in a position to ask, all of that is critically important, because at the end of the day, all of this fundraising that you're doing has very little to do with the dollars, but it has everything to do with what the dollars do for the people that you serve. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.